Breathe in. Welcome to What the Fuchs with Jess Fuchs. Now breathe out.
And scream.
Because here's what's pissed Jess off this week. I went to Melbourne and all I got was this shirt. This beautiful, brilliant, incredible shirt, which is made from plastic and polyester, and I am already sweating through it, even though the aircon is blasting as strong as that machine can possibly handle. I am back. I've been back for 6 hours. No, my math is not good. I got back at like 3 p.m. yesterday, and I've been sniped many a time since returning. I bought this beautiful shirt. If you can't see it, it's like a clown blouse. It's a blouse you'd see a clown in. It's beautiful pink with some beautiful polka dots, a high neck, which I don't think is very flattering in this podcast angle, but you know, I only have myself to blame. I bought this shirt. I also bought a stunning neon green floor length vajazzled gown with some fluffy sleeves, because my goal at the comedy festival coming up in Melbourne, so I'll be going back to Melbourne on like the end of March till mid-April, and I'll be doing an hour show every single night. My gift to you, ticket purchasers, my gift to the people who buy a ticket, let's go with that sentence structure, is I will be wearing a different brilliant outfit every single fucking night. Like, I'm going to slay looks. I'm almost working harder on my looks than I am on the comedy. And that's none of your business. That is between me and my comedy god, which is also myself. That's right, I've come in with a bit of narcissism today. And it's just to off-balance the ongoing concern that I am going bald, because I've been sniped, like I said, many a time since returning to this great state. First of all, when I showed my family the dress that I purchased, they told me it was fucking disgusting. And that's a direct quote from my mother. It was probably closer to my sister said that, and my mum laughed in a way that shows her agreement. Then I went for dinner with my extended family, and my brother's wife. Wow, that is so dyslexic. My brother's wife gave me a hair mousse a couple weeks ago. And since I'm going bald, I have decided I'm not going to take on any new products for the foreseeable future until I am no longer bald, or until I am bald, and then I will need a whole new hair routine, or rather head routine. And she said, "Oh, have you tried the hair mousse that I gave you?" And I said, "No, since I'm going bald, I've decided I'm not going to incorporate any new products into my life at the moment." And she said, "You're going bald?" I said, "I'm pretty sure." Shows she's not a fan of the pod. And then she said, "Can I see?" And I said, "Go for it." And then she looks at my hair, looks back at me and goes, "Well, I can see your scalp pretty easily, if that's what you mean." That's just another way of saying you're bald. That's just another way of saying I can see everything that should have hair on it. And everyone else has been pleasant. "Oh, no, you're not going bald. You're being ridiculous. You're being ridiculous." But she went straight in for the kill. And I said, "You better move a couple seats down before you speak to me like that, bitch, or I'm going to backhand you." It has been a rough landing back into New South Wales. You know, you get back from a trip and you usually think people are happy to see you and going to treat you with some respect. Not even my dog. My dog saw me and my dad, who picked me up from the airport, and my dog runs into my dad's lap. "You saw him 45 minutes ago before he left for probably closer to an hour and a half, because you know how dads like to get to the airport early." I'm on a domestic flight, and my dad parks the car and comes to get me. I mean, that is parenting 101. I don't even think that's 101. The 101 is you like keep it fed and safe, the child. Getting out of the car, showing up an hour early to a domestic flight. He was probably in Sydney airport before I was at Melbourne airport to catch the 1 hour flight back home. That's how dedicated this man is to parenthood. So my hair's falling out, confirmed by my brother's wife. And now I'm so paranoid about my balding head that every time I see a piece, I want to keep it like it's some sort of my precious. I'm like hoarding all my hair. What if I go bald? What is the plan? As a group, what is I need you all to be giving me feedback. What if I go bald? And it's very possible. I'm going to go get a blood test, because my other friend she said she thought she was going bald. Turns out she just was like needed some, like a supplement. I'm like, God, Hit me with a B12 shot right in the pussy flaps, if that'll mean I still get to keep my hair. Cheers. So I was in Melbourne. I did a bunch of shows, came back, had family dinner last night where I was absolutely eviscerated on a kind of ego level. Sometimes people say such crazy shit to me that I think I suffer an ego death. And I'm like, well, now I'm just floating above the clouds and none of you can touch me. I do truly feel above it all. And maybe that's the beauty of life, is you just kind of have to give in. And as I said that, the rain just started to pour. I am filming this on a Monday. It goes live on a Tuesday. So you could be like, what are you talking about, bitch? It's sunny as hell. Well, when I was filming this, I wished into existence that we just give in and the clouds parted and the rain is bucketing and hurling upon us. I got back last night, had family dinner. Pow, pow, pow. Shots taken, shots fired right to my cranium, quite literally, when I said I was bald. Someone put a gun to my head and said, yeah, I can see that. I can see that pretty well. Fuck you. Came home, slept a good 10 hours, woke up. Now I'm back. I'm back, and I'll tell you what, it's just good to have some feet on the ground. It's good to be back home. It's good to feel the comfort and the warmth and rather the cold of a room I can set to exact. I spend most of my time talking about temperature, it feels like, with you guys. I was just doing a bunch of shows in Melbourne, and honestly, they were actually kind of fun. One in particular was kind of fucked. It wasn't fun. It was hard work because I was hosting the whole week. And the thing with hosting is, like, I put a lot of pressure on myself to, like, be good, obviously, because my job is to make sure that, like, all the other comedians get to have a good time. So I am taking bullets. There's a lot of gun metaphors in this episode. I'm so sorry. And it's not as if I know anything about guns. One of my favorite things I think about a lot is how men can understand, and these are men who have never been to the army, never been to the Navy, never been to the one in the air, the Air Force. That one makes the most sense. Air Force makes sense because you're in the Air Force. Army, is that because like there's lots of armies? And then Navy, that's just the color blue. I don't really understand how they came up with those. It is fascinating. Surely it's like all Latin. Dare we Google this? You know, I'm trying to Google less to prove to you guys that I come here with a bit of authority so you respect me a little bit after I talk about ego death. And so I'm trying to limit the amount that we Google in this space, right? And then, do I waste a Google? Do I waste a fucking Google on a male culture thing? I guess we are. Why is it called the Army, Navy, Air Force? Air Force. The word Navy came via Old French navie, N-A-V-I-E, fleet of ships, from the Latin navigium. I don't know why I put on an accent. A vessel, a ship, bark, boat, from navis, ship. Now, that's beautiful. Now, I want to know, why is the Army called Army? And you assume Air Force was the most recently added, since the air is the hardest one to get into. So they went, oh, fuck it, we'll just call this one English, Air Force. The force in the air. Makes a lot of sense. The word army comes from Latin word armor, meaning arms or weapons. Oh. So arms, I was thinking arm, like your physical arm, but I think arms means like weapon. Okay. And is essentially a direct translation of a large group of people who are armed and ready for battle. God, it feels good to be right. God, it feels good to know more than Google. Or rather know what Google knows, but with my own flair. What the fuck was I talking about? I mean, that's breaking my brain. Anyway, so at these shows, was I talking about shows? You were talking about shows, surely. Well, we're just going to start a whole new topic in my mind, unless this does beautifully connect with what I was saying, in which case, hey, you're welcome. So let's just fucking dive right back in. Let's dive in / back in, depending on what I was saying before the army stuff. So I was hosting, and on one of the nights, I always feel great pressure to make sure, oh my God, it's come back to me. I was talking about pressure, taking bullets, and then the army, and then here we go. Look at that. I love the movement of this shirt. Sorry if you can't see it. Sucks for you. It's just basically, imagine a really shiny pink garbage bag. I always feel so much pressure to be a good host when I'm emceeing, and that is the mark of a good MC, because many people will come to a show, and this is very inside baseball, another male term. So sorry for having such a masculine podcast this week. It's counteracting the shirt, so you know. But I always feel so much pressure to take those bullets, that reference, because that is the job. The job for me as a host is to set everyone else up well. And I'm sure in your corporate space there is an equivalent, whether it's like the receptionist is supposed to set the tone or whatever it is, you know. So imagine that. Imagine in the pecking order of how we're supposed to make people feel comfortable. It is me, one, and all the other comedians behind me, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Anyway, I go out on stage at one particular show and I'm like, how's everyone doing? And this very drunk older lady is like, wow! And I was like, oh no, pack it in. She is so drunk. Her daughter is with her, is equally drunk, maybe 2% more switched on to like how embarrassing she's being. And so I'm like trying to crowd work her, but at the same time tell her to shut the fuck up. At one point I tell her everyone's going to hate her if she doesn't stop. She is so drunk. Her phone rings. I tell the daughter, please silence it. The daughter seems to silence it. But then the phone just keeps ringing throughout the entire show. Every comedian had her phone ring during their set. And I'm like, who is this woman that has at 8:30 p.m. business calls? And then at the end of the show, she comes up to me and is like, you Dal was so good. And I was like, that's not the compliment you think it is coming from you, honey. And then I was like, okay, thank you. And then she's like right in my face and she was like, you remind me of that person online. And I said, you're gonna have to be a little more specific. And then she said, the one who does all the stuff about the models. And I said, Celeste motherfucking Barber? And she said, yes. And I said, okay. Now, in terms of comparison, Celeste Barber isn't the worst you could get. Celeste Barber's a pretty random one in the grand scheme of things. I don't see too much connective tissue there other than we both have brown hair, but hers is short and straight and mine's curly and falling out. So we do have differences. The only thing I'll say is in the scheme of comparisons I have received in my life, that is a pretty decent one, because 95% of the time people compare me to people, it's just a fat woman. Now, back in the day when Rebel Wilson was fat, I got a lot of Rebel Wilson. And that was when I was living in America. And that's because Americans would hear an Australian accent and see a fat woman and go, huh, you remind me exactly of Rebel Wilson. I'm like, huh, I wonder what it could be. Because I don't think we have a similar sense of timing. Got compared to Melissa McCarthy, brown hair, fat woman, funny. And I'm okay having those three things in common with them. But I just don't think in the scheme of comparisons, that is it. Now, the only other person I've been compared to, and this is a compliment, and this is a, how do you put it? Well, sometimes when I'm wearing a winged eyeliner and my hair is more full-bodied, sometimes people will say that I look like Charli XCX. I don't see it other than purely dark hair, like the combination of features, but I don't think we actually have the same face. Now, Charli XCX. Let's Google this. It is truly a compliment. But I don't see it. I'm holding up pictures of her now to the camera. Anyway, if I go bald, I'm just going to get like a Charli XCX wig. Do we think that that's her real hair? Do we think that's a wig? Maybe I do look like her. I just don't think that's it. Okay, so she's kind of like... Do you see it? Do I look just like her? It was an interesting show. I was fighting the whole time with this woman to get her to shut the fuck up. And every comedian just went up to the firing line to deal with the loudest, most annoying woman imaginable. And we all knew it was coming. It was just, oh my God, I haven't opened my eyes whilst talking about her because they feel glued shut from sense memory. And every time I close my eyes, I can see her with her fluffy, short, blonde Karen hair and her jumpsuit with a white t-shirt underneath and her beer, which always was full, yet somehow she was so hammered. Painful woman. What's criminal about this whole situation is afterwards we were all talking at the bar, me and the people who work at the bar, and they said she walked in and she said, don't put me at the front. I'm not allowed to sit at the front. And then they were like, well, you're right at the front, like just sit down, or you can physically move yourself, because they shuffle everyone in and they say, please fill in the venue from the front. And she was like, no, don't put me at the front, but didn't say I'm chatty. Then at the end, she tells me that. She goes, well, I did warn them that I would be chatty. And I was like, why? You're at a fucking venue, bitch. Shut your mouth. If you know you're difficult, don't come to the show. If you're so difficult that you have to jokingly say to people, don't put me at the front, just go to a pub and be there with your weird daughter, okay? I went to Melbourne for those shows. I also went because my friend Nick lives there. Nick White, who's been in the podcast. If you haven't watched that episode, go watch that episode. La, 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 la. Self-plug. But what I want to talk about is Nick and I are both going on tour separately. Well, maybe together. We're trying to figure something out. We're trying to figure something out for later in the year. However, for now, the point is we went to New Zealand last year, and when I was just in Melbourne now, we were reminiscing, because when we were in New Zealand, oh my fucking God, there are so few words for how to tell you about this experience we had. We had to drive for like 4 or 5 hours between cities. And we were like, why don't we see if we can stop in at like, a zoo? Sometimes there are these like big zoos or whatever. I don't know why. But so we stop in at this place. Now, along the trip, the drive, we are like checking the maps. And on the maps, it pops up and it's like, there's been a car crash. And on the radio, they're talking about this like fucked up car crash. A tourist bus had a crash on the main highway. So we went this other way, and we were like, great, as we go this other way, let's stop. And we were like looking stuff up. But along the drive, almost as if from the heaven sent itself, God himself put this Wallaby sanctuary along the highway, we see a sign, Wallaby sanctuary. And we're like, great, that's what we wanted to do. Let's stop in. Flick off the main road, and down we go a couple kilometers to the Wallaby sanctuary. Now, there are so few words to use to describe this place. Sanctuary, no. Wallaby, sure. But with a huge asterisk next to Wallaby, there were also an alligator, which we never saw, ducks with the most fucked up wings you've ever seen, and a range of other animals that were all... Oh, there was a peacock that almost killed Nick and I. Now, we drive in, and it's already so strange, because to your left when you drive in is a round enclosure which has a deer, and this deer is just running in circles. So we're already like, this is miserable, this is scary, this is depressing. Why is a deer in an enclosure? Then on your right hand side is a house that is what can only be described as a hoarder's wet dream. Crap is everywhere, but it's all nature adjacent, and it's almost like a museum, but in this really bizarre way. So we walk in, there's gumboots everywhere. There's like, it's just bizarre. We walk in and it's empty. We're like, whoever lives here is a ghost. We walk in and we can't hear anyone, and we're like, hello? Nothing. Hello? Hello? And out comes this tiny little woman. Yeah, all right, I'm just coming. I can't do a Kiwi accent. I wish I could. Let's try it. Six bits of fish and chips. All right, I'm coming. That's not good. I'm just going to do it in an Australian accent, but with her vibe. She's tiny and she comes hobbling. I got a little injury. That's not it either. Fuck, lock into this accent. Ugh. And she's like hobbling and she's like, I'm trapped. I'm trapped in an accent. Just talk like yourself. I'm going to talk like my PE teacher from school. And this is not what this woman sounded like, but it does have her energy to agree. Now, let me get into this character. Year 12. You jumped into the pool. Okay. She comes out and she's like, I have a bit of an injury. This is not it. I can't do it. Anyway, the point is this tiny woman hobbles out and she's telling us that we're in the wrong because she was just having her tea and she's got a knee injury. And we were like, maybe you close business for a couple months just so you can heal because business isn't too busy. So then we say, we'd like to see the Wallabies, please. We have no idea what we're in for. She's like, oh, okay, I'll take you out there. We take our shoes off, we put on gumboots. We walk to this massive area which is all enclosed and it's got like, I don't even know what over it. So you can't really see what you're walking into. She tells us to wash our hands with soap because of cleanliness. However, there is one bar of soap, a bar, so you just wipe your germs onto said soap. You then wash your hands and then there is one towel. It's wet. We don't know if this has been what towel this is for, what purpose this serves. So, wipe, wipe, wipe. We now have wet, dirty hands, but they're clean by her standards. And she comes and joins us right by the fence, the entrance fence. She goes through a range of rules. Nick and I are crying. We are trying not to look at each other because this woman is bizarre. She's telling us, all right, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to them. You can scratch them on the back and you feed them like this. You put your hand out, you put stuff on your hand and you feed them. Now, for some reason, those words which I just explained to you, which you would now know how to feed a wallaby, yes? That's right. For some reason, those words weren't adequate. She made me crouch in the mud so that she could use me as a wallaby demonstration. I'm 10 times the weight of a single wallaby you've rescued, and now I'm crouching in the mud. I wasn't prepared for this. I hadn't warmed up, so I'm crouching. She's physically scratching my back, demonstrating to Nick and I that this is the way that you can scratch the back of the wallabies. And I'm like, okay, sounds good. I stand up. She says, no, down you go. While she keeps talking, I'm crouching. My thighs are twitching. I am sweating in 5-degree weather. Then she finally says, all right, off you go. She gives us a bag of feed each and she lets us in. This feels like a wallaby prison. This is not a wallaby sanctuary. This woman, false advertising. What's also interesting is before she lets us go in, she tells us that we're so lucky for this opportunity because she was supposed to have a bus full of people and they haven't shown up. Who do you think should have been there? The bus of people that maybe died on the highway. We were like looking at each other like, is that the bus? Is the bus on the highway? The bus that should have been here? Because this is fucked up. We go through the main entrance and it is one of the most scarring experiences. You know when something is so bad that you are just hysterically laughing? Nick and I are holding each other. We go through, we see some wallabies. They're like running up to us. We feed them. Then each enclosure has a different variety. So some are wallabies that actually like get along well. Some are just really small ones. And we're walking through and it is just, I mean, there's shit everywhere and it's not funny. It's actually not funny. These poor animals are, and they've all been, in quotes, rescued. They've all been rescued. I don't know. Because then we go from one enclosure to another. And during the walkway, there is a massive peacock that's stuck in like a walkway area that's maybe 3 meters by like 10 meters. So it's very small for a huge peacock. And it is chasing us, full force running at Nick and I. Nick and I had to devise a system where one of us would distract whatever animal was trying to attack us with food. And then the other one would open the gate so we could run through. It was literally like playing a video game, but fucked up. And the problem is you can't just walk into one enclosure and out and leave. Because you might be like, well, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave? You had to complete a Pac-Man-like circuit to get through this fucking place. So we're going from one enclosure and it says on the things, there's all handwritten notes everywhere. You cannot come back through this gate. Once you're through, you got to keep going. I was literally like, where are the coins we're collecting to get to the next level, which is probably hell. So we escape this fucking peacock who is chasing after us. We get into a new enclosure and this one's particularly interesting because this one is blind. I'm not sure that this one was blind. When Nick and I were finally in the sanctuary of our car, headed back to civilization, I turned to Nick after a minute of silence and I said, that blind one looked like she had gotten 2 hot spoons and scooped its eyes out. I don't trust that she's not making these animals disabled to get more money because it is, after all, you pay for a ticket, but then she asks you for donations. I was like, this doesn't feel right. That wallaby feels like Gypsy Rose and she's the mom. Fuck. Then finally we get to like the last 2 enclosures and Nick and I are just looking at each other like, we need to get out of here. This is actually so unpleasant. Like we're laughing so hysterically because we are so uncomfortable. And to be honest with you, as 2 people who create content for online, we were so locked into this situation because we were so fucking scared that neither of us took our phones out. After about the first maybe 20 minutes of taking some photos and like being like, what's happening? Ha ha ha. We stopped going on our phones. We were just fighting for our lives to get out of this thing. We were trying to get out of this space because it was so traumatizing. Finally, we get out and we were like, let's get the fuck out of here. We were like, we just go and switch our shoes. There is like one of these big white birds, the ones that Polly wants a cracker. Fuck, what are they called? And it's literally like, I love you, screaming like that. And it wasn't like, it was literally like, it was terrifying. We're changing our shoes where it's like, come back, I love you, come back. We used the public bathroom, which was just basically a hole with like a plastic sheet over it, and then we get the fuck out of there. And Nick and I drove for 3 hours, shook. When I tell you shook, we were both like non-verbal for a good hour, and then we looked at each other and we were like, was that the most fucked up? Like, we couldn't even process the whole situation. It was fucking crazy. Anyway, there's nothing really to do with that story other than share it here, because that story is an insane situation. And it was just the fact that she was like, just everything about this woman was just truly insane. Nick and I were talking about that this week, and I was like, that is actually just one of the most insane situations of my entire life. Like, truly unfathomable. It's hard to put into words how fucking crazy. But these animals, I mean, best of luck to her. Now, before I let you go, before I let you get back to your day, whatever it is, I hope it's a good one. I hope it's better for this. I just want to read a little submission. A simple write-in. A simple thank you for submitting. Here we go. This is the write-in. Air ventilation. How boring. But it's really complex fine art in apartment inner city living when vents are shared with weed-smoking neighbours and it wafts into your bedroom, which is attached to a bathroom which has no air ventilation. Fucking add some hot showers in there and stinky poos and a romantic relationship. I like that in the scheme of things this person wants to be a part of and would be happy to have their neighbours have to kind of dampen the impact of the weed. Stinky poos and a romantic relationship are both on par, which I love. I think that's really great. I also think the weed thing, the good thing about weed is it doesn't stick. Like, you know when you're around someone who's smoking ciggies and it sticks to your clothing? I used to have 2 friends in high school and university who they would just smoke like fucking chimneys, and I would go do my hair, get dressed up, go out with them, and then they'd be smoking these cigs all over town, and I'd be like, girls, now I stink, I just washed my hair, come on. Not to be a party pooper, but also to be a party pooper. I, as I age, have no issue having clear boundaries about not wanting your fucking cigarette stench to be in my freshly washed, falling out hair. I used to want to be cool and not worry and not want everyone to be like, oh, you're such a party pooper, everyone's smoking ciggies. Yes, so what? So what if the cool guy in year 12 thinks I'm a fucking party pooper because I don't want my fresh hair to be... If we're not dating, if you're not interested in me, I don't need to stand outside this house at a house party pretending that your smoke isn't annoying the fuck out of me. And I have asthma. I have to conspicuously or inconspicuously? Which is the more subtle of the two? I have to, look at me jumping back into character. I have to inconspicuously, while trying to flirt with you, who's actually flirting with my hot friend, turn around and be like, puffer. Yeah, you're so funny, Josh. That's so true. And then you make out with my friend. Why do I smell like cigarette smoke unless getting something from you sexually? Anyway, the air ventilation thing is a real bummer, and whenever I smoke pot in my parents' house, I am thoughtful and I open a window. Yes, that window kind of wafts the weed more toward their window, but then they just shut their window, and then my weed goes to the next door neighbor. I sit in a bathtub, run the bath, and kick back and smoke weed and pretend I am not living at my parents' and a 31-year-old woman. And sometimes that's what people need. So while air ventilation is very important and integral to like making your neighbors happy, I think in this situation, I'm siding with your neighbour. I hate to say it. I have more in common with them than I do with you. Thank you for sharing that grievance. I see you. I hear you. I understand your frustrations. I don't share it so much with the weed of it all, but I do find the ciggies unacceptable. I don't want you smoking anywhere fucking near me. And the stench of vape to me is revolting. If I want to smell cheesecake, I'll eat a cheesecake. I don't want to smell your bad breath mixed in with cheesecake. And people will smoke a vape. Is that even what you call it? Smoke a vape? Probably. They smoke it and then they put their head at a 45-degree angle from their neck, opposite direction to wherever you are, and then they blow it out. As if the air doesn't all mix into one. You think just because you're doing me the honor of blowing your vape smell up into the sky, it's not going to come and get into my pores? I don't want to smell like triple mango. I don't want to smell like blueberry. Yuck. I would much rather someone blow cigarette smell right in my face than do a 45-degree tilt with their fucking pineapple stench vape and pretend like you're doing me a favor. We're in an enclosed space. I have seen comedians smoke in a green room, in a tiny green room, as if there's no one else. Could you imagine being at your job, whatever that is? Let's say you work in a toll booth and you share the toll booth with someone else. I don't know if toll booths are really a thing anymore. And someone is vaping in your toll booth. I'd say get out. I'll put both hands out and do the left and the right side. You fucking leave. You go have your cigarette break, whatever you need. I used to work with a woman named Anne, and Anne worked at a medical center, and Anne had the worst smoker's cough you've ever heard in your whole fucking life. It was like, imagine making a cigarette and a mucus smoothie, and that's what Anne seemed to cough up every 20 to 30 seconds. She got so stressed at this job that she had to go have cigarette breaks all the time. And then she'd put air freshener all over her as if that covered the smell of cigarette. So, and God bless you, doll. And I'm sure you're still alive because there are people who just smoke like a chimney and live to 110, and that's just good genetics. This was a weird episode, but it's all I had on my mind, body, and spirit to share with you after my Melbourne trip. I think I overslept this morning, and now my brain feels like it's kind of cross-eyed. All right. See ya. Thanks for listening. Mwah.